pleasure for me as a longtime fan to be sitting here with Aaron Gray.
Here with Larry Hama.
We're talking with Kevin J. Anderson, best-selling author.
Mr. Neil Adams.
I am here with David Fritz.
Axel Alonso, editor.
Shadow Stevens. And Devil's Comic-Con with John Delancey.
Tom King.
Kevin Conroy.
Free comic book day.
Denise Crosby.
PopCon Pop Expo.
Here on location at Star Wars Celebration.
Cafe Expo, talking for our second time with Gil Gerard.
Wichita, Kansas at Time Eddie.
Producer David Gerald.
I've got Eric Flint.
Are here at Smallville Comic-Con.
Wizard World St. Louis.
VillageCon in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Michael Lombardi.
We were talking with Alan Dean.
Quincy Allen.
Suzanne Landon.
Of Starlog Magazine, Mr. Kerry Oakwood.
Chris Sami.
Len Lee. Schwartz. Mano Intirami. Jason Aaron.
This is Sci-Fi for Me, your portal to the science fiction multiverse.
Come get some.
The Immortal Mask, a 1970 superhero crime noir adventure that follows a retired soldier who is given a covenant interview with a death row inmate. What he learns from the interview thrusts him into Atlanta's shadowy underworld. He'll have to utilize his military training to survive from being hunted for the information that could topple the most powerful ruling class in the city. This is not a pre-order or a crowdfunding campaign. Get your books now at denali's.com.
And that's the part that I always go back to the next day to mute it out because YouTube says, hey, that's somebody else's song. I'm like, yeah, I know, and I'm not changing it. So we're going to stick with it. Ladies and gentlemen, it's another evening with the LCS guys. And with us, as always, is Michael Tierney from Little Rock. But guess what? We are looking forward to adding some LCS guys to the show, possibly even tonight if they get the link I sent them. This is all on me because I got their okays and they said, yeah. And then I didn't get home in time to create the link to send them until just a minute ago. So maybe they'll pop in and we'll meet them tonight. If not, we'll meet them certainly in a future show. But Michael, you got nothing to do now.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to not be working 24/7. It seems like haven't had closed my stores 2.5 years ago, took it a mail order, and I haven't had a day off since. I'm just literally been working an insane schedule where, I'll sometimes go I was going several days without going to bed even. I just work until I couldn't go any longer, take a couple hours of sleep, and start again. And of course, what I was working on was that Robert E. Howard art chronology. Wow, what a major project.
And it's done.
Yeah, it's done. I sent the print-ready files to the publisher on Wednesday, and they had them to the printer on Wednesday. So they were like, yeah, okay, well, let's go. Let's get it printed.
There you go.
That's
so
nice.
They have a return date estimate on those books, or are they going to sit in queue for a while?
Yeah, they're anticipating. They were like, it's kind of funny because on Tuesday they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, we just figured out we sent you some wrong templates, so you need to change the layout on all 1,600 pages, and you need to have it to us tomorrow because we missed tomorrow's date. Then it'll be a 6-month delay." So work through the night again, which I'm used to. That's not a big deal. And I hope I got it all right because that was a lot of work to do in a short period of moving all the headers around on 1,600 pages. But yeah, I got it done, and so they. So I had to have it on by Wednesday, so I got them delivered on Wednesday, and because then I had to generate the PDF files, print PDF files through InDesign, and then that takes a while to generate. Then I had to upload them to a web server that they could pull because the files are too big to send any other way. You got to use a host to send them up to, and then they got them pulled and they got them sent off to the printer in time. So by making that Wednesday deadline, they should be printed by the end of February. Then they're going to have to send off a set to some guys in Colorado who will custom fit the slip cases that go around them. And then there's another month or so delay. They're anticipating filling Kickstarter orders hopefully in March and maybe having them for sale in April. The Edgar Burroughs chronology, that was a monster, 25 pounds, 1,200 pages. The Robert E. Howard is going to make that one look teeny tiny. It's 1,600 pages. So it's a full 20. Yeah, I know that's a lot. And it's 1,600 pages. So that's 25% more in volume. So you figure another quarter on, we're going to be 30-some pound item. Wow.
Now, was there a digital version of this one offered like there was on the Robert E. Howard one?
Yeah, there'll be a PDF also.
Okay, so that's done. So that might be going out to those buyers soon.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
and like you said, it's huge. So they're going to have to go to a download site to get it. It's not going to come in your email.
Yeah, I don't know if they can do the PDF on an email. I'm not sure how that's going to work. I'll let the publishers go take care of that.
They'll get a link.
I've sent them the interactive PDF files, and they'll take it from there. I've already delivered that too. So I actually had that delivered on Tuesday. It was the print files I delivered on Wednesday. So the print files and the PDF files will actually be a little bit different from the print files. The print files actually, because I had some things I had to pull at the last second, and so I ended up having a few blank pages. And like, oh well, all of a sudden now that's not the size we got it quoted on. That's going to. I was like, okay, I'll just throw some bonus art in the back. So the print pages are going to have like about 9 pages of a bonus art that are not going to be on the PDF. So the print guys are going to get something extra.
There you go. That will make them very happy. So what's it like getting a full night's sleep that first night after?
Well, then yesterday I had to work on all the stuff I wasn't able to work on Wednesday, and hasn't happened yet, but it's going to hopefully this weekend.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't have stores to run anymore. Oh, you needed to clone yourself.
It was tough. When I did that first one when I had a store, but I had a pretty good crew at that time, so that helped me get it done. And but this one, wow, this was so much more work. There was so much more content, so much more material, and of course, still trying to find time to keep all my mail orders going, this and that. So that's takes quite a bit of time. So and then still, whenever I'd be like at a point, okay, well, I'm waiting on somebody else now because like I got it all written. Then I had to have it to editors to go proofread my work. And so I'd be like, okay, well, I don't have anything to proofread to go through to work on. Well, then I'd work on other projects. So I've got another thing getting ready to come out. And actually yesterday I went ahead and finished all that up. And now it's being proofread. Another book based on a short story I'd written a while back called Skydance of Winter Fire. And it's
sounds like a George R.R. Martin book.
I know. And it's based on an actual event. Have you ever heard of winter fireflies?
No, usually they hibernate.
Right, exactly. And but it was the most incredible thing I ever had because I've got park out behind me and I got a couple of big old pine trees. Well, usually I have fireflies from spring to fall. Some of my neighbors have never been too happy with me because I'll leave all the ground clutter on my yard throughout the winter. But I know I've got all these animals living underneath it. That's their blanket. And so I have fireflies from spring all the way to fall every single night, every year. I mean, usually most people see fireflies and occasional, like when one generation comes out, they last for a couple of weeks and that's it. I have them constantly every night, all throughout the spring, summer, and fall every year.
You're a firefly sanctuary.
I am, and yes, I don't put any chemicals in my yard, so and they take them like about 6-7 years, get to the point where they come out of the ground as a firefly, and that's only lasts for a couple of weeks, and so it's a long cycle of life to get to that point. And well, you know what an Indian summer is?
Oh yes, that I know.
Yeah, and it's probably a politically incorrect term. You're not supposed to use it, but I don't know how else to describe it because that's the way it was always called. But what an Indian summer is when all of a sudden you're in the middle of cold winter and you get a warm snap. And it completely freaks Mother Nature out. Trees start to bud, this and that. And it woke up some fireflies, a whole bunch of fireflies. Then it turned cold again. And so I have never seen this kind of frenzied mating on the fireflies. I mean, it was like staccato. Usually there's just a flash here, a flash there, very lazy. Yeah, I'm cooling around, coming cruising, looking for chicks. And then bam, all of a sudden, like, gotta go, like they all were on meth or something like that. It's just zap, 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 zap. And they didn't stick close to the ground. They climbed up into the pine trees behind my house. And I mean, it was like the most incredibly lighted up trees I'd ever seen. I mean, I've never seen a Christmas tree that looks so cool like that. And so I tried to take a whole bunch of photographs, but they just didn't turn out the way I wanted to. And at the same time, when I was doing all that, I changed up my firewood, pulled some old firewood closer to the house and put in new stacks of firewood in. And I was disturbed some bugs that were living there and hibernating through the winter, this and that. And I got to think, I wonder what happened to them. And I tell you what, I know, no kidding, Woody. And I was thinking about how all the little small animals in your yard, how humans, they probably view us like our nightmares of Cthulhu monsters storming through like Godzilla, stomping on the city. And I kind of came up with a little story, the viewpoint of all those bugs that I disturbed. And so I kind of a little romance horror story, an all ages horror story for kids and adults. And then what it is, I'd put a little bit of a text on one side, and then I'd have an illustrated plate on the other side. And so, when I got to the bugs, I went anthropomorphic on them, but just the bugs that were part of the story. All the other animals look realistic. And so.
Yeah, because bugs, we're like Cthulhu. We're too big to see. If that makes any sense. I mean,
I know, monsters as tall as the mountains.
Yeah, we fill the entire range of vision.
So I wrote, what happened to those bugs? Because I remember when I was putting up the wood, I was like, I wonder what happened to that wood bug. Because I was blew one off of the wood pile. Like, you don't want to go over here, stay in this area. And I was like, I wonder whatever happened to them. So let me write a story about it. And so that's what the Sky Dance and Winter Fires kind of incorporates those two things. It's got two stories: me telling what happened, and then like, okay, here's what I think maybe happened to the bugs.
Sounds like it's be a fun all ages kind of book.
And the whole thing, I was sending it to different editors. They're like, "Wow, we really like this, but man, this is such a visual story. We really think this needs to be illustrated. This needs to be like put together with art, not just as a text by itself." And so now I've started having more time, so I went ahead and put the art with it. Now what I did is I would take my photographs, so it's half art, half photography too. So
because you're a professional photographer. I mean, when I say professional, you know more about the camera than just pick one up at Walmart and aim and click.
Oh yeah. Well, have you ever been to my website?
I have.
Have you seen my underwater photography pages?
Yes, because folks, Michael is a Renaissance man. Okay, he's not just your LCS guy. He's not just a guy who's making huge books about Robert E. Howard and Edgar Rice Burroughs. The man dives with sharks.
Yeah.
and takes their pictures.
Yeah, close up the pearly whites. So
yeah.
Yes. Most a lot of divers. There's people who I'm a master certified scuba diver. I could be a dive master. All I have to do is take a written test to have that certification. But if I do that, all of a sudden I got to start buying all this expensive insurance, because when you're a more experienced diver, you always try to buddy up with inexperienced people. And if they kill themselves, and believe me, most people when they go diving, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They're trying to kill themselves, and if they do, they succeed. Well, then their family can sue you and say, well, you're so experienced, you should have been able to prevent that from happening. So I just stopped at master diver. That means I can do any kind of dive I want, drift dives, reef dives, on boats, just open water, any kind of diving you can imagine. I'm certified to do it. Nitrox diving, that's when you go down with chemicals. So I got all that certification. And there's a lot of divers, their whole career, they never encounter a shark. I've had shark encounters on half my dives.
Yeah, well, you look for them intentionally too.
Right. Yeah, I tend to dive places like Shark Grottos, Shark Junction, Shark Alley. So you recognize a pattern there.
It's funny because there's a sporting goods store near me because I went to it to try to find some stuff for my kid for his birthday, and I went in and we're a sporting goods store, but not that kind. All they had was scuba gear.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, we're in Arkansas. who's scuba diving in the middle of?
I probably know what stores you were at too. Yeah, a couple of places. There used to be like 3 big ones here in Arkansas, but now they're down to 1. It's been tough on small businesses.
I was like, who would have thought there'd be such a demand here? I'd expect that to be like Florida, southern coast of Alabama, but
we've got lakes, so people are certified. But believe me, once you've dived in the ocean, you don't want to dive in lakes. I mean, they're just muddy, nasty. The fish aren't colorful. You got to watch yourself because most of them are man-made lakes. When you're descending down, you have those trees still down there, so you don't want to impale yourself on a spike of a dead tree. It's cold, nasty, just no fun at all. You're just diving in fish poop.
Okay, you've talked me into it.
Yeah. But when you get to the ocean, oh my God, it's just the clarity of it, this and that. Night dives are a blast. A lot of people get scared about doing a night dive because they think, okay, they're just going to have this little beam of light out and there's going to be darkness all around, but it illuminates everything. And it's pretty cool. And
spreads out.
Especially when you dive some wrecks. And I was doing one wreck dive one time, and we had an elderly gentleman. I'm probably the age of that elderly gentleman now, but he ran into some trouble while he was down there. And so here you got a dive master who's got a few dozen people down there diving that he needs to watch, and he's got a guy who's getting disoriented, don't know what to do, needs to get up the surface. I'm like, I'll take him up. And so you got to do all these hand signals. So I'm escorting him up to the surface where you got to do safety stops and to decompress because you get these nitrogen gas builds up in your blood. Sure. If you don't do these safety stops, you get the bends and you can kill yourself. And so as I'm taking them up, we're doing our stops. And it worked out well because I got to see this view of all these divers with all their flashlights going all over the wrecks. These were supposedly haunted wrecks. And there was always like, yeah, you can see lights on those wrecks. So I get it back on the boat. I'm like, yeah, I saw the lights. They're like, really? Yeah. All the other divers wandering around. So
have you ever found anything going down under the ocean?
Actually, I saw one time I was doing a compass dive certification. And I came across this little stream. I swear it was like a stream of gold. It was like, holy, if I had time, I'd stop and, pull my knife out and see if that's actually a thread of gold that I found in the ocean floor. But you're doing it on a timer and this and that. You got to get to certain points. And I was like, oh man, what did I just see there? So yeah, I was kind of wondering about that. But the fish life is incredible. Just some of the things. It's not as good as it used to be. When I was diving in the 90s, I was very disappointed compared to what it used to be like compared to the 70s. And then when I went back, last time I went diving was like 2008. And I'm not kidding you. I felt like I was diving through graveyards. Now, they try to say that it's global warming. But that's just an easy excuse not to do a solution to the problem of pollution. Because whenever you get to where man is and you're close to ports, that's where it's just all dead and all bleached out. It's, toxins in our waste and it's all the junk we're dumping in the ocean. You treat the ocean like a toilet, you're going to be living in a toilet. That's what we've done. Yeah. But then you get to reefs way out in the middle of nowhere and they're robust, got great life, this and that. I remember one dive I was doing. It was I can't remember what it was called. It had a unique name, but it was on Grand Bahama Reef Island. And we got ready to do the dive, and the dive master, she goes, okay, now, listen, I know we normally want you to do your safety stops, but if you hear me bang on the ladder, get out of the water as fast as you can. Well, I'm like, why? Don't ask. Just if you hear me banging on this thing, get out of the water fast. And I went down there, and the corals were incredible, but like all the fish were hiding. I'm like, well, whatever scared her is probably scaring the fish. I was like, what the hell is going on around here? I was like, this must be a tiger shark area or something like that. So, that must have been a sighting or something. They were like, be careful. And Yeah, so that can happen. I've never was dive. I'm nervous on dive. I remember one time on one dive though, I was doing along, and all of a sudden I noticed all the other divers hiding behind a coral wall, watching me with their cameras. Thinking, well, this is odd behavior. When I get back up on the boat, I asked them, "What were you guys doing?" And they said, "Well, there's this shark that came out of a grotto right behind you. We were certain it was going to attack you." Well,
And we were going to film it.
warning. Oh, boy, this is money shot, man. Man eaten alive by a shark. Don't
You know
tell
how
him.
many clicks I'd get on the internet with this?
Yeah, don't tell him. Yeah, so but they said it veered off at the last second, so came that close to being attacked by a shark. But yeah, I've never really been nervous, but one time on that, and this was with a group, and I was always, to do my underwater photography, you want to get away from the other divers because all the noise and the breathing, and that just they scare the fish. And so I was always like the first guy in the water and the last guy out. And we were doing a drift dive over a 5,000-foot reef wall where it just dropped off into the deep blue of the continental shelf. And I was about 100 yards out in front of everybody. And do you ever have that feeling, somebody's looking at you and you turn and look right at somebody or something?
Yep.
A oceanic white tip coming out of the deep blue. You don't normally see them around reef walls. They're deep ocean. We talk about number one man eaters. You got great whites and oceanic white tips. You heard about the Indianapolis, all those sailors got eaten when they got torpedoed after delivering the atomic bomb. Those were oceanic white tips. And I got one coming right at me. Back arch, pectoral fins down. Not a good sign. So I'm watching him, and he cuts right between me and the other divers. At this point, I'm like, maybe I ought to fall back to the rest of the group. Nobody else even saw that shark. And and I wasn't going to flash it because flashes can sometimes trigger him. He was already looking angry, like, yeah, let me just, I'm not even going to try to get a photo of that. The most dangerous photo I ever took, though, one time, I see this whole big old school of barracuda. Must have been 50 to 100 of them. We get a picture of that, took a snap. And you ever seen the movies Shrek? Or not Shrek, not Shrek. It was the one Ice Age where you have that kind of like little rat type of chipmunk.
Yeah.
Falls in the water, and all the fish look at him and reveal their teeth at the same time. There's a scene there. Well, what happened was I took that flash. Well, barracuda are known to hit flashing items. That's a trigger to them. And that's why I knew not to do it with a shark. And the whole school turned and looked at me like, is that something to eat? I did not take a second picture. I just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to kind of start backing up here. That's probably the most dangerous picture I've taken. Like I said, I wasn't going to snap it a second time. So when this oceanic white tip comes along, I was like, I'm not even going to get a picture. So
that should be one of your next books. You should put all your ocean photography in a book.
Well, this one does very well. I might do that because I've got all the photography, and I've also got a short story that I already sold and had published a couple of different places. Shark Fighter. It's about a couple who gets stranded. It's a horror story, and a couple gets stranded on dive and get left out in the open water, and tiger shark comes on being hungry. Got great reviews.
That should be a comic book. You should get with Chuck Dixon because Chuck Dixon. I want to say it's Chuck that does this. Was it bare-chested man? He's a bear fighter.
Shirtless bear fighter.
Shirtless bear fighter. Yes.
Although every time I swear I see that in the catalog, I read it without the R. I don't know why. I just like every time I read it like that.
If I was fighting a bear, that's what I would be.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because it would all be behind me.
Yeah, you'd be moving.
Oh man. I don't know if he does that or not, but I know he did two-fisted manly tales. And I think that Shark Fighter sounds like it would be a two-fisted manly tale that would fit in there well. Just that kind of pulp action kind of thing.
Well, that was in the when it was first published. That was in the second issue ever of Crosova magazine, and there were some guys doing a review of it. And I've got a link on my website. And when they get to mine, they're like, "Holy blankety blank! Stop the bus! There's a guy fighting a shark."
Yes, this is what we want to see.
So that's
better than watching Johnny Weissmuller wrestle an alligator.
So that's on my review page. Stop the bus. That's a good review.
Oh man. Well, we've gone a half an hour. We have not talked about comic books.
Oh yeah, I think they still make those.
Yeah, they do still make them. I've even bought some recently, as
really?
recently as today.
What'd you get?
What did I get? They're right here. I got. Okay, so I don't know if I'm missing issues of this. I know this because I forgot to keep up with it. But Alice Ever After.
Okay.
Because I've just I pick up anything to do with Alice in Wonderland since my
And you
first
have an
book came
experience
out.
with that title too.
Yeah,
Not that
yeah.
particular
So it's
title,
like
but Alice.
I know I had more books in this. I'm missing a book. Oh no, he double bagged. And then I wanted to give Batman a chance. An issue that's not in the middle, at least, of some big huge story arc. It doesn't look like. So I'm like, okay, standalone Batman, also featuring Robin Tim Drake. That's Robin, Tim Drake. So I guess it's the Tim Drake Robin, since there's so many of them now.
Oh, I know. You got to specify.
And then I didn't get the one I went in looking for. I went in looking for Stargirl, The Lost Children, #2, and apparently #3. I missed both of them. But I did say, okay, I will try this one shot. The DC Universe, Lazarus Planet.
That's
once were gods.
Customers, they're just like the reboot weary. I mean, they're just like, whenever they get done with the reboot and get it back going, then I'll look at it. Nobody's
apparently
buying it.
This is the continuation of Batman versus Robin, and the whole Ra's al Ghul mythology, which was great for Ra's al Ghul. He had the Lazarus Pit, how he lived so long. But when everybody else started using Lazarus pits, and I guess at the end of Batman versus Robin, a Lazarus volcano goes off.
Okay.
And that's what Lazarus Planet is. All these people are impacted by the Lazarus Pit stuff. And it's going to impact the super people as well. And they're going to have powers change because why not? Here's what I miss, Michael. And I get on my soapbox about a lot of things I miss in comics. But the thing I miss the most is a superhero being recognizable because he's unique. The Flash is the fastest man alive. That's him. He's super speed. There doesn't need to be 7 of him. When there was 1, it's like, that's unique. When it's 7, it's like, oh, okay, there's people who go.
There goes another one.
Yeah. Batman was unique. Bat family, Robin, Batgirl, okay. Man-Bat, he's a villain, but he's sometimes a hero. Commissioner Gordon's a side character who can have adventures. Jason, forgot his last name now, was a detective who was dating Batgirl. He could have adventures. But yeah, Jason Bard. But for the most, Alfred had adventures in the OSS. Of course, tell us what happened with him.
And he's worth, yeah.
But there wasn't a collection of capes hanging around. The families, they're super duggers, is what they are now. They've got too many family members. So please, if we could just condense things down again, that would be great. The only one that's forgiven for that is Green Lantern, because yeah, you're an army of these guys. That's, but again, every space sector had one Green Lantern to it, except for Earth. It gets like 7.
I know.
Shit gets real here. We need 7 Green Lanterns to keep it all
Green
intact.
Lantern Corps. That was the title for a while.
Yeah, it was so there's 3,600 sectors. That's all the Guardians watch. Everything outside of that, you're on your own.
Yeah, that's it. Who cares?
But our sector 2416. We're going to need Hal. We're going to need John. We're going to need Guy Gardner. We're going to need Charlie. We're going to need Kyle. That's 5 so far. We don't need that many. And now did I forget Simon Boz and Jessica Cruz? So there's 7. Yeah. And then the other one I bought was second issue of Justice Society of America. So another Jeff Johns title. And these are the ones, by the way, that he said he was selling out of. He's selling out of Justice Society. He's selling out of Stargirl. And I said, they got something in common, Yeah. They've got the same writer, and they're talking about the same era and lineup of DC Comics. So maybe.
Speaking of Justice Society, I finally saw Black Adam.
Okay, so what did you think of Black Adam?
Well, this is one of the nice things about no longer have my stores. I would always hear about every plot point from 20 different people. I mean, I could never, even if it was, I went to like the preview the day we were releasing that night. Somebody went to an earlier show and had to come in and tell me all the key points. I mean, so it was always rent for me. I never could watch something and not have any precognition of knowing what was going to happen ahead on key points. You know, I mean, you know, Star Trek, Wrath of Khan. Like customer comes in, don't tell me I'm going to go see it tonight. It's premiering. Okay, but Spock's dies, or you know, the same thing with when he comes back. Oh, Spock's alive. You just so they always got to tell you something to run the story. And when I was watching it, you know, I'd avoid the reviews. I can see some people were saying, oh, they loved it at first, and people are like, well, maybe it's not that good. Some people were like, you know, oh, it's like 3 movies put in one. That's all I ever got. You know, never read any details. Just headline.
I think everybody loved it, and then they talked themselves out of it.
Right, yeah. And I was watching it, and I thought it was a good movie. I thought they did it right. I mean, it was kind of like, you know, how Marvel would kind of give you a storyline, and it wasn't a hodgepodge like some people were trying to say. I mean, you start out, you introduce the guy. He's kind of a bad guy. I mean, he goes on the hero's journey. He goes through, learning who he is, and you know, then you find out he's not who you thought he was, and then he has to go through a redemption phase, and he's never completely redeemed, but he's just got he's definitely the definition of an anti-hero. And but what was nice about it was they pulled from the comic history, and and I was never a reader of Black Adam. But, you know, I was selling all these comics, and I'd be seeing, yeah, I remember that cover. I remember that cover. Yeah, that's a scene from that. And so they used the material to and stayed faithful and said, okay, we're going to reinvent it, you know.
Yeah.
Whenever you try to reinvent the wheel, you come up with a square and it's a clunker going down the street. And so they stuck to the base material, had a good story. It was great, production values. I thought Rock did a good job, and I enjoyed it. Really, I think of all the more modern superhero movies, we're talking, in the 2000s, I'd have to say it was probably maybe the best thing DC's done, followed by the first Wonder Woman, and then followed by maybe Suicide Squad. And then you kind of mix the Snyderverse stuff. I mean, they're all, to me, almost like the same thing.
Yeah. Well, the Snyderverse movies were all like, it was all chapters of one big story he was trying to tell there.
Yeah. When he was doing those, I always told everybody, I said, well, there's one way you can tell the difference between a Marvel movie and a DC movie. Marvel movies have scenes that happen in daylight.
Yes. This is very true. Everything was dark in DC.
Yeah.
And I tell, how I was on a panel years ago at a convention discussing the differences between, the DC movies and the Marvel movies. Actually just all their production. And I said, with Warner Brothers, it's, okay, we're going to take the bright blue costume of the most optimistic character in our universe, and we're going to muddy it up, and we're going to give him an attitude problem, and he's going to feel alienated and alone, and we're going to pick on this, and it's going to be very grim. And over at Marvel, they're like, we got a raccoon with a machine gun.
Yeah, I know.
And they're just having fun with it.
Right. And they stayed closer to the material, the original material, and didn't try to reinvent it and redesign it. Just stick with what works. Time tested and approved. Fan approved.
I thought it was, and I don't know if they rewrote history in DC again for Black Adam. The only deviation I saw, which I thought was an interesting tact on it, was that he was not the selected champion of the Wizard Shazam. But his son was, and then his son gave him the power, and then immediately died.
I thought that was a good twist, because it gave an element that people who were real fans of the thing were like, oh, I know everything's going to happen. Yeah, there it is. Blah blah blah. Oh, wait a minute, what? You got to give people a little bit of that. You got to give them something a little bit new, twist it up, to where you do make it unique, but at the same time, stay faithful to the core material.
And it made sense that he could do that, since they'd established that Shazam, the Captain Marvel, let's just say, was able to share his power with his siblings. I'm like, well, if he can do that, then the other guy could have done it. And
right.
Hi.
You got a visitor.
Where are you going? Not down here.
That's probably one of those new micro drones.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've got a window with no glass in it on one pane. So they kind of come in when the light's on.
Yeah.
Do that again, we're going to have words. Give you one of these things.
They heard you talk about by Skydance and Winter Fargo. Hey, talk about us. That was a relative, man.
Yeah. Thing if I go like this, this thing, you can't catch them and let them go. If you touch them, they powder.
Yeah,
there's like poof, like where there was a bug here a second ago, and now there's dust.
All thing you do is maybe put a glass over them and slide a piece of cardboard underneath them. That's the only way to do it.
I did that, 2 weeks ago with the bat that was in the house.
Oh, really?
Yes, this bat crawling around on the carpet. I'm like, you're not supposed to be in here, and I have no idea how you came in, but we're going to take care of this right now.
Yeah, you got a hole somewhere.
And the dog was like sniffing at it and trying growling at it and barking. That's what alerted me to it. And it wasn't trying to fight back. It was trying to get away. I'm like, okay, probably not rabid, because if it was, it would probably be trying to fight back or something, acting unnatural.
Yeah.
But let's just get you out the back door. It's best we can.
Yeah, don't kill it if you don't have to. Yeah. It's like, you'd hate to be
get up there and eat those bugs, like this one.
Yeah. But some things you can't do. There's no saving them. But you can try.
Oh, I know.
If you can try, if you can do it.
Now, did you see the post-credit scene on Black Adam?
I did see Cavill showing up as Superman. I was like, oh, it would have been so nice, but I've already heard Gunn's already acts the idea.
Yeah, and that's what sours me on the rest of the DCEU movies. I mean, Blue Beetle. Well, Blue Beetle's coming up. I've seen the movie posters out for Blue Beetle. No title, just a big blue beetle. I was the only person in the theater who knew what that was.
I know. Bad advertising.
And the Flash, but it's like I don't care to see them anymore because they don't mean anything. We know that the path of the story has just been stopped and it's going to be all started over again with James Gunn. Now,
I don't know how much people are going to want to see a movie starring Ezra Miller either right now.
Yeah, well, the thing with that one is that it's been done. It's been finished, and it's been sitting in the can. Unlike Batgirl, which had another several $1 million worth of special effects and post-production work to be done to it, they're like, yeah, we can stop putting money in this one.
Now, I do have to wonder about them canceling the third Wonder Woman, because you had Gal Gadot. I mean, she did a good job. That second movie wasn't very good, but that wasn't Gal's fault.
No, she's been a great Wonder Woman in every other movie she's been in. Justice League, Batman versus Superman. The first Wonder Woman, she was great. So that was a script problem.
Yeah.
Production problem. Paul was the Blue Beetle. Yeah, it's the beetle was Paul. What was I? Something about the movies I was going to talk about.
James Gunn.
One thing that people are rumored talking about is that despite the fact that they canceled, in other words, the Snyderverse, there was a movement to have Warner Brothers license the characters and the Snyderverse version to Netflix, to have them produced there separate from what Warner Brothers was doing. And then Warner Brothers filed a trademark for Snyderverse.
Really?
Yeah. So
we
it's
don't
like,
have any more to do with this, but we're going to put a claim on it.
Yeah. So people are talking like, well, why would you file a trademark claim on something unless you were planning to maybe do something with it? So
yeah, you never know. Maybe they want to do something later.
Yeah. Forbes magazine ran an article says, hey, the best thing Warner Brothers could do right now for cash is license this thing out to Netflix and let them make the Snyder stuff. I'm like, yeah, okay. So then we'd have our movies, and then we'd have our Snyder, and it's a multiverse anyway. You've made that point multiple times now.
Yeah, it could be on a different planet.
Yeah, different vibrational plane.
That's it. Earth 73b.
Yeah, and
that's not just a different number, but a letter too, because this is a version of a version.
Yes, well, that's what they've done now with DC. They've it used to be the multiverse. There was Earth 1, Earth 2, and then they threw in Earth C. I'm like, how did you possibly run out of numbers that you had to start using letters?
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and who decided? This actually got mentioned in some old Justice Society comics back in the day. It's like, hey, if we were first, how come we're Earth 2 and they're Earth 1? They're like, nobody knows. but yeah, that's somebody sat around and numbered them all and kept track. But we just had the multiverse, and now we've got the multiverse, but we've also got hypertime, and they put those together into an omniverse. Like, you're just trying to gild the lily here, folks. You're trying to make it sound extra super cool when it was already cool.
And the only bad thing about, the multiverse is a great idea. You can do all these different stories. The bad thing about it, though, is you create such a convoluted history. It makes it very difficult for new readers to find their way in. when I started out in business 40 years ago, over 40 years ago now, and Marvel was just far and away number one. Marvel was just the Marvel universe. There was no A, there was no B. They hadn't started doing their time travel stories even yet. And other than Kang the Conqueror, but he would always show up in our time, and that was it. And every now and then, maybe the Fantastic Four go back to the time of Raw to find out, oh, that's where Kang came from. But of course, they're starting to bring him into the movies now too. But but DC, they had the multiverse, all this different stuff. Well, Marvel just outsold DC like 3 to 4 to 1. I mean, it's just because people could find their way into it. Like, hey, if you count numbers, you can follow the series, because it wasn't like restarting all the time. Now it's just so convoluted, it makes it hard for people to find their way into where to start at, which version of it, and that's the only bad thing about it. It's it's like the Martyr is saying, is just you could ruin it if you put too much on, and that's what they've done. Because it's like for a long time their comics were too static. You knew that no matter how wild the story got, by the end of it, it was going to be back to status quo. Well, now it's gotten to the point where there is no status quo. It just the ground's constantly shifting. And I remember I had read every X-Men comic from Giant Size 1 in '94 up until you got close to around the 200s, and then they did it might be a higher number than that, but they did the where they Age of Apocalypse.
Age of Apocalypse, yeah.
Upped all the titles for a year and did all these miniseries. I'm like, I'm not going to read these because I know after a year's up, they're going to be back and started. I'll just start again. I could never find my way back in. And
because they did that, and then they did Onslaught, and then they did House of M, because Scarlet Witch made a whole new universe,
right?
And it was okay for an idea to say, hey, we got thrown into an alternate universe, and
but
now we're back.
The whole universe with it.
Marvel was like, that's just so good. We're just going to keep revisiting that, and it branched the timelines.
Things that should be little offshoot stories, all of a sudden, okay, now that's the whole universe story, and that was where they made the mistake, because you lost your core. You're grounded the universe where people could relate to, and then you have all these side adventures. That's fine. But now all of a sudden everybody goes on the same side adventures at the same time, because that's when they started with Secret Wars and Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, DC, what they were trying to do is they were trying to simplify everything, and it was.
Which I didn't think it needed it. I could follow it easily, but
right. And see, this is Secret Wars. Well, we're doing the same thing. This crosses over everything, and so ever since then, they're got to do a big crossover every year, and it's got to affect everything. And that was the mistake right there.
It made money. Now, the thing that Secret Wars did that was brilliant. Yeah, it only at first it made money. Crisis was like ongoing. It's like, hey, we're in a crisis. Follow us and see how it ends. And it bled over into all the titles. Everything was concurrent, which was one way to do it. And it sold a bunch of books for DC that they wouldn't have sold otherwise, because all they had to do was color the skies red and some panels to say Crisis crossover.
They did that on too many episodes. Like, this is a Crisis crossover. Oh, it's red sky background. That's it.
That was it.
Yeah.
With Secret Wars, is like they didn't do it concurrent. They did a time jump. Like Spider-Man ended and he finished his adventure. Like, hey, there's bright light in Central Park. Yeah. And then next issue, boom, Black Spider-Man. It's like,
what a new costume.
And so what that did was like, how the heck did that happen? I'm going to not miss an issue of this 12-issue series here, because I got to find out where Ben Grimm went.
You didn't have to buy every book in the whole Marvel Universe to get that story. You bought that one little 12-issue series. And, of course, the big one is number 8, where you finally say, okay, here is the origin of the black costume. And, of course, that's supposed to, the start of the symbiote, this and that. And, but, it's, that was still finite to a certain degree. And then they went to where, okay, everything affects everything. And I know it frustrates the writers because they have a storyline plan. Okay, well, now you got to stop in the middle of the story. And, when I was writing these reviews for the Conan the Barbarian comics, same thing there. All of a sudden, Conan's going to stop and fight these interplanetary plant people who are attacking for a month or whatever. All of a sudden now, all these demons flying around the sky. We aren't even going to bother explaining. Yeah, that's something that's going on. It's null going on, or it's the symbiotes are attacking. And you're going along with the story. You only want to read this one story, but they keep sidetracking with all these things like, I don't know what's going on. And we're not. Guess what? We're not even going to try to explain it decently. We're just, this is happening. Just we'll get back to the regular story next month.
There's a way to do it that
And that ain't
makes
it.
you realize you're in the same universe as all these other characters.
Uh-huh.
And there's a way to not do it. One of the ways that I thought was unique and clever was there was a huge storyline going on in Thor. Now, you know, all the entire, we say Marvel Universe, we're talking about New York City. That's it. Everybody's there. There was a huge story going on in Thor where it was the Winter Giants were attacking, and it was like in summer, and because of the Winter Giants attacking, it was a blizzard everywhere. Well, rather than, you know, have the Fantastic Four, have the Avengers, have everybody show up because there's, you know, giants in New York, Thor's handling it by himself. Well, what's happening? Well, Spider-Man's over in his book. He's going after whatever criminal it is, and he swings from, you know, a building, and he's like, whoa, it got cold. Why is it snowing? This is weird, but I can't think about that now, and just goes on. And then there's the editor's note says, want to know why it's snowing? Go read Thor.
Yeah. But they didn't try to say, oh, he swung off of a frost giant, like, oh, I wonder what's going on. I don't have time to examine that. They didn't go that far into it. Yeah. But see, with the Conans, they did. They kind of gave you elements of it with no explanation what's going on. And then it's gone after that issue. And you're like, that was just weird. I don't know what's going on. If you're not reading all the other Marvel comics, you know. Now I knew what was going on because, you know, I sell them for a living. But to the casual reader, you're like, what's going on here? They make it just too hard to appreciate it. Take you out of the moment. You never want to suspend the suspension of disbelief.
Peter David used to complain about that when he was still writing Hulk.
Really?
You know, he would have these arcs planned out, and they're like, no, you got to break the story now because, you know, Atlantis is going to attack, and Hulk's going to be. It wasn't that Hulk was going to take place in the Atlantis attack story. It's that Atlantis attacks was going to take place in the Hulk story.
Right.
You can have a character arc happening in their book and still have that character show up in a special event. And you don't have to say, well, how did he get away? And we'll make up a way to do it.
Uh-huh.
But
then sometimes they don't even try. Like Wolverine will be fighting with the X-Men down in Australia. Then he's also with the Turtles up on the moon, and then he's also a Patch at Madripoor running a bar. Yeah, what was this guy got a teleporter in his back pocket?
Well, actually, he did when they were in Australia.
I know, yeah, that worked out for a while. That explained a few things, but the whole patch thing, like, what?
Why was he wearing the patch? I never did. He like scratch his eye and forgot to take his claws in? Like he just doing one of these things and then snicked. He's like, ow, oh crap!
That was a very convoluted story. That didn't make a lot of sense. Like we're going to just notch him down, take him from the superhero villain. Now he's just running a bar, and he kind of my name is Wolverine. First name. Can't do a James Bond imitation with one name.
Oh yeah, what
is Wolverine? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Frank Miller destroys companies.
Does he?
I've just had that epiphany because you think about it. He did Dark Knight Returns, and what happened was DC said that's what sells. Let's throw Batman at everything, but it's going to be the grim and gritty Batman. And we've had a lot of Batman ever since.
Gritty. And I said, well, let's just do it on everything. And
yeah. And then he went to Marvel, and well, I might have the chronology mixed up. I think Marvel was first. Went to Marvel, did that Wolverine miniseries, which knocked everybody's socks off. Marvel's like, oh, Wolverine, a Wolverine who kills. That's what we want. Okay, Wolverine everywhere. Marvel Comics presents Wolverine -- 1. Let's throw him in Hulk again.
Now, one thing I'll say about that four-issue series with Miller writing it, Klaus Janson, helping on the inks, and that was a beautiful series. But when it came out, they had print runs of like 480,000 for the day. It was like, oh my gosh! And everyone's like, those books would never be worth anything. I knew one guy who actually had still string-tied bundles of those of 50 copies. Of course, the outer ones are all torn up, but the inside ones are pretty nice, stacked up on a wall in his house. And all over, because there were just so many of them made. But everybody's like, this is never going to have a chance to be valuable. 480,000 copies. Those are very valuable books. They've done very well. The whole thing is you give a good story and art. Doesn't matter how many of you print, the demand is going to be there.
Yeah, that's what it takes.
Then you got books out there, had a couple thousand printed. Well, nobody cares, so no value.
The guy who does Mile High had a problem. Yeah, he had a problem a while back because he had a storage unit that he was supposed to be guarded, a security area. And apparently someone had broken the lock on it, not to steal comics, but to live in it.
Oh.
So it became a homeless encampment. And he had all these 90s comics. They were 90s comics. He
Well,
was
it-
letting them vent like wine, you know.
Yeah.
And
At
they
least it
just,
was the 90s, not the 60s.
yeah, oh yeah. So they'd like slept on them, walked all over them. They were just, a mess. So
I
you know,
bet they did other things with them since they probably didn't have toilet paper.
probably. So your copies of Spawn just became that much more valuable because there's a lot fewer of them on the market now. I don't think anything. There's a lot of love for the 90s. I did not.
I didn't care for them either. I didn't hardly read the 90s stuff. I mean, just it wasn't that interesting to me. I started doing the grim and gritty, and then after that, then they went to the whole. First it started out with the bad girls and the grim and gritty. They kind of got away from the bad girls a little bit. Then you started getting into this political correctness, and it just people aren't telling good stories. They lost what the magic was. The flip side of it though was the art got great. I remember reading these comics back in like the 70s and 80s going, hey, these stories are fantastic. I sure wish they had better art. Now they got better art. Like, these stories are awful.
Yeah, I was just
awful. Maybe that's harsh, but they just don't connect with you like they used to.
They didn't connect with me. They connected with whoever the new readers were, because I interviewed a lot of people like, so how'd you get into comics? And they're like, oh, it was I was a kid and I picked up Spawn. I'm like, oh my God. It's like, I'm so old. You picked up Spawn as a kid. Okay. But I was not really, I was buying them out of habit because, I loved DC characters. So, I was there for all of Nightfall, even though I hated it. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I don't really like John Paul Valley. I know he's not going to stay. It should have been Dick. And when it was Dick later on, it didn't stick either.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was happy with DC Comics again until they put the Justice League back together again correctly. They did that 3-issue miniseries, Justice League Midsummer's Nightmare. And then that launched into the Wade and Kitson run. And then that lasted for a little while and that dropped off, and they brought in Grant Morrison to launch it again with number 1. I was like, okay, now I'm in. That was fun. Everybody's just, it's cold up in Denver and the air is thin enough to make you hallucinate that Rob Liefeld's art is incredible.
Wow. How about Rocky Mountain High?
Yeah. Well,
Bob Denver's going, hey, settle down a little bit, pal. I'm not even alive anymore.
Oh, we're burning Rob Liefeld, and I love Rob Liefeld. I didn't like his art.
Came out, people really liked his work. I picked up his Youngblood, and I flip it through. His art was flashy, and but then it opens up on the very first issue. The guy has stood up this girl for a date, so she shows up, and all of a sudden he gets an emergency call. Oh, and she's complaining about how he stood up all these other times. Then he gets the emergency call. Now he's got to go again. And she's like cheering, like, yay, go get him. I'm like, my God, this guy's never dated a real woman in his life. There's no way you stood up a girl 4 times in a row. Sorry, honey, I'm about to do it again. She's like, go get him, Tiger. Nah, there ain't no woman in the world going to react like that. I couldn't read it when I was done.
You know who liked Rob Liefeld's art? Ace Hardware.
Oh, yeah, really?
Because, anybody who wanted to cosplay a Rob Liefeld character had to go get pouch belts.
Yeah.
And like, I really shouldn't lay it all on Rob Liefeld because Jim Lee was good for that too. I mean, remember when Jim Lee started doing the 90s version of X-Men, and you had the Cyclops suddenly had a pouch belt and a pouch strap. I mean, like, what's he got? Like pockets full of Cycloperangs and a Cyclops line, some Cybombs. What did he have in there?
Well, at least you have normal size heads and normal size feet, though.
Yes, yes, he did. That was the thing in the 90s. That was one thing I did not like, and everybody loved was Ramos artwork on Impulse, and Todd Nauck was doing the same thing. You had little characters with big feet. Like, okay, that just took me out of it. Made it too much of a cartoon.
Well, there for a while, manga got huge. And so everybody thought, everybody likes manga art. So they started hiring these guys to draw Asian style. And they did the sale. So they were like, manga doesn't sell. No, you can't all of a sudden, Robin can't all of a sudden be a Chinese guy. It doesn't look
No.
right. That's why it wasn't selling. It wasn't that people don't want the manga art. The reason when they buy the manga, they're not buying it for the art necessarily. Manga gives you different content. It's not the same old stuff that Marvel and DC kept telling the same story over and over again. With manga, you get a huge variety of stuff. It's not all just superheroes. And that's why the manga sold. That was, the style's fine too. I mean, it's unique, but that wasn't just the art style. It was the variety of content that made manga sell so well. And so when they tried to draw Robin like manga, it didn't sell. They're like, people don't like manga anymore. No, wrong conclusion.
Well, I don't know what they're drawing Robin like now, because I could take Robin right now. He's got this pencil neck that I could just like snap and be done. It's a weird art style they're putting on Robin right now. Dark Admiral March Hare. You are correct. Not all the 90s books were terrible. I was still buying tons of books in the 90s. You know what? The 90s still had some good DC crossovers that I liked. I liked the 0 Hour. That was another one of those reboot kind of sort of attempts where, the 90s is when Hal Jordan lost his mind. And,
they finally explained that away. I mean, again, Jeff Johns came in and gave it a good story to make sense. Because before it's like right before he loses his mind, you got Superman in an issue saying he's the noblest of us all. But give him some bad news. He's going to go psycho and start killing his friends. That was the next one.
And then when he does lose his mind, Batman's like, I never did like him.
I know, it's just retrocon stuff, and it didn't fit, Then, wait a minute, that was a parallax thing. So Jeff Johns made it into a story, and he took all those inconsistencies and explained them away.
Yeah,
and then it was more
parallax. He figured out the whole yellow impurity in the ring. It was genius the way he brought all those elements together. I thought
he's one of the better comic writers going in the last quite a while, and not to show shade on all the others, but he's one of the better ones.
Yeah. Now, the 90s was also, and I was so taken by this that I wrote an editorial on it. This was after Flash Rebirth, which was another great book. This might have even been early 2000s now. Losing track of time. When you get old, that happens.
If you go to as a retailer to Lunar, and every time you bring up the order form, that trade paperback is the very first item that I'll always show until you start doing a search.
Which trade paperback? The Flash Rebirth? Well, it's
there he goes again.
It's just the one. He can't find his way out here. Go out this way. Go out this way. Here's a breeze. There you go.
It's your new side.
It was the
RJ and
series in I don't know what the miniseries was called, but it ended up with Green Arrow killing Prometheus on purpose. I mean, he just waited for him, put an arrow in him, said, "This is done. You're not going to do that to us again." So now Green Arrow's on the run, and the Justice League sends Black Canary, Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, and Flash Barry Allen after him. And Barry is just a jerk to him. He's like, you killed this person, and I don't know what Hal ever saw in you. I don't know why you guys were friends. I always thought you were this horrible person. And I'm like, record scratch. Let's go back in time. Let's go back to the Flash series when it was coming to a conclusion, and he's killing the Reverse Flash to prevent him from killing his wife, his new wife.
It's okay when I do it.
Yeah, because you're at super speed, and at super speed there's no such thing as an instant passionate decision. You have all the time in the world to think out what you're doing when you're breaking that neck. And not only did you kill the person, but when the Justice League put it to a vote whether you were going to stay in or out during your trial, there were 6 thumbs up. There were 3 thumbs up and 3 thumbs down, and Superman made the deciding vote when he showed up to put you on probation. One of those thumbs up was a big green glove that fired a lot of arrows. He was on your side. He had your back on this. I was like, yeah, we're just throwing that history out there. Ungrateful speedster.
That's one thing they forget about. The fans remember this stuff. You're like, well, this is not consistent. This isn't the character. And, they just they take you out. Again, suspension of disbelief is suspended.
It's the new writers that don't know the history.
There you go.
So what they do is,
but the stories don't connect.
Yeah. So these new writers, they read the Wikipedia page on this character, They see the highlights of it and they're like, okay, that's the story beats that everybody liked. That's the story I'll write again.
Right. And that's why you and I read it. Go, I've read this 5 times already. I don't want to read it again. It looks great, but I know everything's going to happen before it happens.
Here's a okay. So between 52 and Rebirth, Batman got renumbered in both of them, and I was sitting there trying to put my books together in order. And my long boxes are alphabetical and numerical and chronological. So when you get to Batman, all of a sudden it's like, okay, is this the first or the second one? I had an issue of Batman. I could not tell which volume it was because they were both the same number, different dates. I had to go in and find the dates. On both covers, it was the Joker by the same artist.
Wow.
So,
rehash. He's gone.
Actually, I think I missed him, but
look like you got him there.
Oh, so
Talk about it there, that's for sure.
They and the same writer. It was like the same story because it was like Batman and Joker in conversation.
That's not what happens in a comic. Comic is not. You can't tell a comic story. And I like a lot of people really like Brian Michael Bendis, and he wrote great dialogue. Problem is not a lot happened in his stories. I mean, you had to read like a whole sequence of them to get some action. And to me, there's something needs to occur on every single page to make you a reason to look at that page. There's got to be like an event. It doesn't have to be major, but there's like a focus. On there. That's the way Kirby and Lee used to do it. It flowed you, brought you to this, and you're looking at that, and this is going on. And the story evolved all the time. It just, okay, we're going to get one place and just talking heads for 6 pages.
Yeah. Now, how well did because we talk about sales, that's one of the reasons why we have the show. How well did the new Batman Spawn work for you?
The Spawn people bought it. The Batman people didn't.
Okay, interesting. Because I bought it. And the interesting thing about the Batman Spawn crossovers, at least the ones that McFarlane has been involved in, I know that they had 2 of them that one time, and it was like a competition. Let's see which one sells the most. McFarlane keeps it in continuity, whatever happens. And because, Batman ended the issue throwing a batarang at him, and it stuck right there in Spawn's face. And Spawn's had that scar continuously now, the rest of the series, carried it over. But the weird thing that the way they had to make it work was to give Earth dead zones, where Spawn's power suddenly wouldn't work in these specific geographical areas, so that we could have workable fights. And of course, one of those dead zones is on the grounds right outside Arkham Asylum. Yay! And it was they almost had a Batman Spawn connection. Like, why did you say Martha?
God, that was
but the connection was that Bruce Wayne's mother was killed on the same night as Spawn's wife was killed.
Yeah.
How? How does that work?
Yeah.
And then they ended it by showing well, they're on different Earths, obviously, maybe time running a little different on each one. But they ended by showing that Spawn's wife's analog was still alive on Batman's Earth, and Martha Wayne was still alive on Spawn's Earth, and is like, get ready for the next crossover in another 20 years, or 30 years. It was a long time ago.
You're talking about the dead zones. It's kind of funny about how the power is not consistent in the comic book industry. It's like whatever you need to be able to do, they can barely do it. I got to move a mountain. Oh, I can barely lift it. Oh, I got to lift a pencil. Oh, I can barely lift it.
Exactly. Yeah, Spawn's apparently 3G in a 5G world when he's over here. He's like, oh, what happened? I'm getting cut off. We're not getting reception here.
It's not blowing enough wind to keep my cape up all the time.
Yeah, but the one thing that stood out to me on this was that they were looking for somebody together. And if you're looking for a crazy person, you go talk to a crazy person. They go talk to the Joker, who's not in Arkham Asylum. He's just in like a warehouse, sitting in a chair, waiting for Batman to show up. And they have the grrr conversation with him, and then they leave. I'm like, what? you just
go on, keep doing your stuff. We don't want to interfere with your day.
Yeah, I'll get to you in a couple hundred more bodies.
The character.
But Dark Admiral, sorry you had to go, man. But glad that you were here. I understand internet cut out. I've been without it for 3 days. I'm fully expecting it to knock off again today. Well, we had snow. So
People don't realize how snow down south blows everybody's mind. Up north,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, big deal. Put on a jacket.
It's not the snow that does it. It's the pine trees that hold the snow until they can't hold it anymore, and then they crack and they take lines down with them.
I remember there was one time we had a really bad. They closed my stores down for a couple of weeks. We had a storm so bad, and really bad blizzard happened on Christmas, and we've had a couple of those, and so we had no power. Fortunately, I've got a fireplace, so I was keeping warm that way. But there was no entertainment, nothing electronic, so you do some reading, and so there's no sound, nothing moving outside. Roads are impassable, and then about that time, all the pine trees branches started breaking.
Yeah,
and it was a constant crack boom, crack boom, crack boom, close and far away. It's
eerie sound.
Like you're in Beirut at the time when all the unrest was going on. I was like, gunfire going off, people hitting the ground all over the place. I mean, it was bizarre. It really was wild.
We had that ice storm when I lived in Conway, when I was, one of your regular customers there. And I remember
what I'm talking about.
It probably is because I remember that my mother-in-law lived in Magnolia and her power went out. So, Magnolia is like on the Louisiana border. Conway, folks, is right there in the center of the state. It's 180 miles. And her power went out, and my wife was worried about her. We were the only car on the interstate the entire path.
Yeah.
And because we were the only stupid people out. And you could hear crack, crack. And then you were driving on the interstate around pine trees that had fallen across it and trying not to slide off the road.
It was like a war zone. It really was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was insane. I don't know. But I guess I don't know. We just didn't call somebody and say, hey, go get mom. Take her to your house. We brought her to ours. It was 6 hours down and 6 hours back. Like, I don't know how we survived it.
When I had my stores, I was always having to get out, maybe, I even had gas meters freeze up, and all of a sudden the stores start freezing that way, even when I couldn't open up. Sometimes deliveries would still be coming through, so I have to, run out and meet them. And so I've got a truck. I bought this thing custom back in 91. It was the first of the 92 model. Comics on the mind.
You get a new truck every year if it's a Marvel. They just rebuild the engine.
They just reboot it, yeah. And and I've still got that truck, and because I had it custom built, and I had it with a Z71 off-road package, standard transmission. Most people went automatic, like, no, not that standard, because I want to be able. You can't drive in an automatic transmission on ice.
No,
because you're going to have to try to hit the brake. Well, you don't want to hit the brakes on ice. The wheels are going to want to keep moving. You got to be able to slip it neutral and just roll over the bad spots. And so, same time you 4-wheel drive, you can move around and get around. And so, there's many times I was out being the only guy on the road. And, what was really funny about the ice storms is, like you said, nobody on the road. And so I'll come in to open up the store after it's finally over, and a customer come in and say how he was the only guy on the road, but he came by and I wasn't open. How come? Dude, you just said you were the only person on the road. Why am I supposed to get out there and drive all those roads if I don't have to? Because, one person might come in. And, there were times I actually stayed up during bad weather for different reasons. And sure enough, nobody would buy anything, but you become the refugee house. And, let's all go over there and bring our kids so they can all loiter and climb on the comic book shelves and this and that. Learned real quick, when it's bad weather, just close down and go home. You're not going to sell anything. You're going to become a babysitting service.
You don't want to be the only thing open.
Exactly.
If you're not unless you're selling hamburgers.
Yeah. I mean, I remember there were times when I'd get really busy when you'd have all these days over 100 degrees, people come in for the air conditioning.
Yes, absolutely. Because you got to keep it temperature controlled.
But those people would actually buy something. And those were actually some of my better days. I'm like, wow, it's 110 degrees out. Let's go to the comic book store. Like it triggered shopping. I'll tell you another time that really strange trigger. Yeah, pine trees. And,
they're not Christmas trees either, Herrenberg. We're talking growing telephone poles with a couple of branches on the top.
Right. And it's bizarre down here. It really is. I started to say something. I lost my train of thought with the comment about the poles there.
Yeah, well, we talked about air conditioning and people coming in to buy
Oh,
because you
yeah.
were.
I was going to talk about the other bizarre thing that really brought in a lot of people, which it was tragic. Space Shuttle Challenger disaster.
Really?
People were devastated by it. And I got swamped the day that thing happened. It's like I just need to go do something fun, get my mind off of it.
I remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that day. I was in college. I was a telemarketer selling encyclopedias. Remember what those were? And
Yeah,
I was on a call in Florida when they said space shuttle just blew up. I'm like, okay, see ya, bye.
Yeah, that's one thing about, when you're dealing with stores, all these events are happening, and you can see people's faces like, the radio starts, oh, we've just dispatched warplanes, and they are now bombing Baghdad, and the look on everybody's face. About that time, the noon siren will go off every Wednesday at noon to test the warning system. Oh my God, Russia's retaliating. No, it's the same time every Wednesday. Well, they had to stop doing that test for like about a year while we were fighting over there in the war in Iraq. Because that's just scared everybody. They think Russia's launched a nuclear attack on us. Then there was another
on Arkansas.
Yeah, the terrorist attack, 9/11. Well, because they were wanting to come after Bill Clinton because he used to be president. The president used to be governor of Arkansas. And he used to be based here in Little Rock. So there was rumors that the terrorists were going to come after our water supply and poison the water for the Little Rock area. Well, that's going on. Well, guess what? The water company decides it's going to flush out the hydrant in front of my store one day. Freaked everybody out. I was like, guys, come on. They do this on a regular basis. And I was, all right, you're right. Yeah, the terrorists are coming after us. Well, when they hear it said, they're like, okay, maybe we are overreacting. But when I was trying to tell them, no, that's just normal. Like, no, the terrorists are coming. Oh, my God, we can't drink our water. They poisoned us. That's not what's going on. This is just a regular flush.
People are dumb, stupid, panicky animals, and it, said Agent K to Agent J. So
yeah,
and he was right every single time.
Yeah, but that's one of the good things about it was, and that's the one thing I do miss is the daily interaction. I mean, I had a place where all my friends would come visit. They paid me money to come visit me, so it was fun.
We can all come to your house.
Yeah, but they all left my stuff, but they didn't leave money for it. So,
do you ever think you're going to go back to selling now that you got the big book project out of the way?
No. I've got so many other projects I want to do. I'm being approached by other publishers to do other things. This is what I've always really wanted to do anyway. And not having to deal with all the overhead, all the expenses, all the things beyond my control, bonehead moves by the publishers, bonehead moves by national government, like, oh, you need to close it all down or we're going to shut down our whole distribution network. So many things out of your control. And then all the problems with employees. I mean, just the employees are just the quality of them has really gone down in recent decades. I don't know what they're teaching in school, but they're just not teaching them the right stuff. Work ethic is just gone. Is this all this entitlement of I'll just fuss them. I'm insulted, so I get my way. Okay, just because you say you're insulted, that doesn't mean you get your way, whatever you want. And they just been taught that you don't say please anymore. You say I'm insulted. Give me what I want. And I had to fire people who like come in first day of the job, like, wait, you aren't going to get off your butt and do any work. I didn't obviously use those words, but that was the message. Like, you need to do the job, or when it comes lunchtime, I'm just sitting at home. I'm going to give up on you. I mean, I had people I gave up after hours, and sure enough, they would file wrongful termination lawsuits. Well, I showed up for work. What more did he expect? I wasn't going to do anything. I thought all I had to do was show up. The work ethic is just, it got so hard to find to people. When you find a good person, you have a good, thriving business. Operating a successful business isn't so much about your product, isn't so much about you, your location. It's the quality of the people you have working for you. A good employee can make a bad business thrive. A bad employee can put a good business out of business.
Sure. Do you think you're going to, at least do a one-man kind of thing at Comic Cons? I'm
not going to be a show salesman for comics. I'm just I'll do my mail order business. That's it. If I do any conventions, I'll probably be, if somebody invites me as a guest. I'm not going to go around trying to peddle my stuff. I just got other things to do. I'm going to go to Washington D.C. for municipal league meetings as a politician, meet with all the different state legislators, do some things like that. But I never was a show guy because to me, I always found out I did better at my stores than I did the shows, even when they'd be one locally, because I found out I was just taking my stuff that people expect to come to my store to see it. So I just never did as well as a show. Now, I will say that when I took my Wild Stars comics, and this is like the only time I've ever really done that, I went to 2 megacons in 2001
Yeah.
and 2002. And I did very well. I mean, it was like the second one, my Wild Stars comic series was complete. It was a 3-day convention. By the end of the second day, I had sold every single thing I took with me. And it was just angering the guys on either side of me because they weren't selling nothing and they were getting insulted about the activity I was having. And then when I was just loading up and leaving a day early, I was like, hey, would you guys like to give me a paper sack? So I was selling sets more than I was singles. And so I had all this extra supplies. They're like, why would we need that? And I go, okay, I'll just throw them in the trash can. I'm just trying to be nice, give you something, because obviously I wasn't going to haul it back. And so, I had all these multiple loads to open up my booth. And when I left, I just left all one load that I could carry myself. So, I've done lots of shows, but I just don't know if I'm, spend all that time traveling. I just
yeah, because certainly science fiction convention, and I wouldn't think travel the country and everything, but we have a few that are local, and you've got several books now with the Kursova stories, the and then the compilation stories, and of course these Edgar Rice Burroughs and H.P. Lovecraft. That's the next one. Please do that. By the way, Color Out of Time just went into public domain this year.
Okay.
So, just throwing that on the back burner there if you're in the market.
Well, there's a little Cthulhu in this Skydance and Winter Fire because I'm envisioning people as a Cthulhu monster. So,
Michael, we've gone over the hour and we have not done the one thing we always do, which is there anything special that's been selling the last month that's a surprise or anything that you expected? Well, I can't ask you your expectations anymore because you only order to demand now.
Yeah, I can tell when a hot book comes out that all of a sudden I'll start getting my phone will start ringing. People looking for comic book stores in the dictionary or in the phone book and online. What was really strange is whenever you'd have a hot book that just skyrocketed overnight on eBay. And then you get all these people coming out of the woodwork calling him, I just want this for my kid, or I just need 10 copies for a read along at the local Boy Scouts. And, I just want to pay cover price for that book that's selling for 40. Yeah. Just come up with any kind of story to write to make it sound reasonable. Like you should help them find those books. And, they're just flippers. I don't know if you hear that term a lot where you're at, but flippers, just guys just come in, want to buy something just so they can flip it on eBay right away. And they just hope that you didn't know what was going on and, had all this inventory that they could just snatch real quick and they wouldn't want you to sell it to your customers. Like, no, I'm taking care of my customers first. My regular guys, I'm not some Joe Blow walks in off the street. You're not grabbing every copy of something. I want to make sure I got copies from other customers.
That's happened a lot more recently, I think, than at any time everybody knew Death of Superman was going to be a hot item. And, like you said, they were lined up out the door and down the block at your store for it.
That was crazy. I couldn't even take the phone off the hook because every time you hit the switch book to try to take it off the hook, there was already another caller on there.
Yeah.
It was like the Attack of the Zombies. Like everybody turned and walked towards the comic book stores.
But people got it. And then the one day a couple years ago when they said, first appearance of Punchline is in 2 books that come out on the same week. So figure out your first appearance carefully, folks. I called Dave up at Cosmic Comics, like, hey, can you put one of those aside for me? Like, they're gone. They're gone. It was like the rush happened that day.
Yeah.
I was like, there's gold at Sutter's Mill.
And that's the way it would be. Yeah. Whatever the latest hot thing was. I mean, people just, they'd all hit you. You'd see people you hadn't seen in years coming for that one book. Oh, I just happened to be in the area. I'm like, oh, come on. You think I'm an idiot?
And the only day it was hot was that day.
Yeah.
Something would come out the next week that would just like fizzle that.
Attention span of a 3-year-old.
I don't think that Punchline appearance is doing anything. I don't think the character's done anything.
And see, I'm not going to participate in stuff. I never did participate. I didn't want to sell you something during the peak of demand. And then later, like, oh, now it's not even worth a fraction of that. Then they're going to remember you as somebody who took advantage of them. So I never would participate. Like I would sell them at cover price or discounts to my regular customers. And, if they wanted, to turn online, that's okay. But I wasn't going to let some guy come in and grab the whole stack. And then all my other customers couldn't get a copy.
Yep.
And boy, it would make people mad when you wouldn't let them buy at all.
You just had to put that sign up, limit 1 to a customer. And
I can't believe you won't let me buy everything. Yeah, they just people get mad.
Trying to give you money, man.
Yeah, that's the argument they would use. Yeah, and my job is to take care of all my customers, not just 1 or 2, and especially not somebody I'd never seen before, not somebody I haven't seen in 5 years. You can't come in for this one thing. You want to grab all my copies. I'm there to take care of all my customers. And I always had a firm belief there is such a thing as addition through subtraction. Like, well, you'll just never get my business again. Like, okay, fine. That wasn't any business to start with. You're wanting me to shortchange all my other customers? No, I won't do it. I had a guy walk in the store one time. He goes, "You're going to get," and he just announced as loud as he could so everybody would hear. He goes, "You're going to give me a 15% better discount than anybody else you give, or I'm going to walk out the door right now." I walked out of the counter, walked over to the door, and held it open for him. And everybody's like, "Yay!" Oh, he was mad.
Just going to demand a 15% discount over what everybody else was getting.
Yeah, or I'm just walking out the door right now. Let me hold the door for you, pal. See you around.
Yeah. You're not buying a car. This is
Well, people think they can bully their way into stuff. I mean, I had a guy one time wanted to buy a box of top demand, X-Men, like in the range of 120 through about 300. It was a several $1,000 box of books. I'll give you $30 for it. That's a pretty good deal. I think you should take it. And he was trying to bully me, trying to intimidate me. I was just too busy laughing. And he called back a little bit later. "Have you been thinking about that offer?" Like, yeah, look, it was funny then. It's funny now. No, thank you. Just people think they can bully on this stuff. I mean, they watched The Godfather. I couldn't tell you how many people said, "We'll make you an offer you can't refuse." I refuse.
Yeah.
I even had one guy one time. I was dating multiple girls at one time. And I was dating this one girl who was very kind of Scandinavian looking, another girl who was Native American. And so whenever I was out for lunch or dinner, they'd come up to my table like, "Hey, just wanted to stop by and say hi." Because he wanted me to know he was following me around. And it freaked one of the girls I was out with. She said, "Oh, my God, I think he's mob." I said, "No, he's just mob wannabe. He's just acting like he is. He's trying to intimidate me and it ain't working."
I'm going to tell the other girl.
Yeah. Hey, I know that's what he was thinking. He's like, "Oh, you're like, I'm not exclusive with either one. So that's fine. I can date as many girls I want to."
There you go.
I wasn't stepping out on anybody. So wasn't bothering me. Wasn't going to get me in trouble. It was like, "Ooh, I saw you out with that other girl. Now I see you with this one, huh?"
Yeah. Somebody comes in claiming they want a big discount, be like, okay, how many tens of thousands of dollars are you dropping?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you want a discount, then you make it worth my while. Well, here's $30. Like you said, $30 for a box full of X-Men run. It's not a yard sale.
Well, one thing he could, like one guy who was doing that could verify. Like I used to say, "Man, I wish all my old girlfriends would quit posing for these covers." Well, he saw visual proof.
Oh, snap. On that note, I think it's time to wrap things up. Michael, thanks again for popping in. Next time around, hopefully we will have Jimmy and Fergal with us and get back to, the old roundtable discussion of retailers swapping secrets and telling tales and
comics instead of fireflies ending in different places.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here tonight. We don't have a show without you. We're just a podcast falling in the woods otherwise. And as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night.